This one will hit number one. This one will go viral.
I think it could. If you have some really great, pithy insights, we might go right to the top.
I just got to do a and it'll go viral. Honestly, it's like I never thought I'd see it, but I think between Elon and Sachs and people like that, we actually have builders and doers and financially intelligent people and economically intelligent people in charge. And despite all the craziness, Elon's not doing this for the money. He's doing it because he thinks it's the right thing to do. Of course. And
he moved into the Roosevelt building.
I think like many of us, I had bought into the great forces of history mindset where it's just like, okay, it's inevitable. This is what's happening. Government always gets bigger, always gets slower.
Me too.
And we just have to try and get stuff built before they just shut everything down and we turn to Europe. But the thing that happened then was, Caesar crossed the Rubicon. The great man theory of history played out, and we're living in that time. And it's an inspiration to all of us, despite Sam Altman and Elon's current fighting. I know Sam was inspired by Elon at one point, and I think all of us are inspired by Elon. I mean, the guy can be the Diablo player and do Doge and run SpaceX and Tesla and Boring and Neuralink. I mean, it's incredibly impressive. That's why I'm doing a hardware company now. It makes me want to do something useful with my life. Elon always makes me question, am I doing something useful enough with my life? It's why I don't want to be an investor. Peter Thiel, ironically, he's an investor, but he's inspirational that way too, because he's like, the future doesn't just happen. You have to go make it. So, we get to go make the future, and I'm just glad that Elon and Doge and others are making the future that I want to live in.
What do we got going on here?
Maybe I'll reveal it on the All-In podcast in a couple of months. But it's really it's really difficult. I'm not sure I can pull it off. So let me try. Let me just make sure it's viable.
Is it drone related? Is it self-driving related?
Drones are cool, but no, it's not.
Maybe All-In podcast should be an angel investor.
Oh, yes. Let's do a syndicate.
Yeah.
Let's do a little syndicate.
No syndicate, Jason. Just our money.
What are you talking about? You know how I learned about syndicates was Naval. The first syndicate I ever did on AngelList, I think is still the biggest. I don't know. 5%, and Naval's my partner on this, for calm.com.
I think you'll love what I'm working on if I pull it off. I think you guys will love it. I'd love to show you a demo.
Let us know where to send the check.
Kuhn.
Wait, which one of those is giving him the erection?
No. He measures his nighttime erections.
I think Kuhn is giving him the erection. He's measuring it.
So I know Brian pretty well, actually. And I joke that I'm married to the female Brian Johnson because my wife has some of his routines. But she's like the natural version, no supplements. And she's intense. And I think when Brian saw my sleep score from my 8 sleep, he was shocked. He was just like, you're going to die. He's like, you're literally going to die.
What do you got, 70, 80?
No, it's terrible. It's awful. But it's
Tell the truth. What's your number? It
was like in 30s, 40s. But but it's also because I don't sleep much. I only sleep a few hours a night. And I also move around a lot in the bed and so on. But it's fine. I never have trouble falling asleep. But I would say that Brian's, skincare routine is amazing. His diet is incredible. He is a genuine character. I do think a lot of what he's saying, minus the supplements, I'm not a big believer in supplements, does work. I don't know if it's necessarily going to slow down your aging, but you'll look good and you'll feel good. And sleep is the number one thing. In terms of falling asleep, I don't think it's really about whether you look at your phone or not, believe it or not. I think it's about what you're doing on your phone. If you're doing anything that is cognitively stressful or getting your mind to spin, then yes.
So you think like you can scroll TikTok and fall asleep is fine?
Anything that's entertaining or that is like you could read a book, right, on your Kindle or on your iPad, and I think you'd be fine falling asleep. Or you can listen to like some meditation video or some spiritual teacher or something, and that'll actually help you fall asleep. But if you're on X or if you're checking your email, then heck yeah, that's going to keep you up. So my hack for sleep is a little different. I normally fall asleep within minutes. And the way I do it is you all have a meditation routine.
You have a set time? You have a set time every night?
No, I sleep whenever I feel like. Usually around 1 a.m, 2 a.m.
God damn, I'm in bed by 10. Yeah, I need to sleep.
I'm an owl. But if you want to fall asleep, the hack I found is everybody has tried some kind of a meditation routine. Just sit in bed and meditate. And your mind will hate meditation so much that if you force it to choose between the fork of meditation and sleeping, you will fall asleep. Works every time.
Well, okay, so after
and if you don't fall asleep, you'll end up meditating, which is great too. So last night was unusual for me, but it was kind of funny anyway. I thought, I should go to bed early because I'm an all-in.
Yeah.
But I ended up eating ice cream with the kids late.
Wait, what was the brand? You said you went for another brand. I want to know the brand.
I think it's Van Leeuwen or something like that.
Van Leeuwen.
Incredible.
Yeah, of course.
So
Of
good.
course.
New York and
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
that is good. That is good.
The holiday cookies and cream. Oh my God, so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
Van
So after
Leeuwen,
I
good
polished
pull.
that off, then I was like, oh, I probably ate too much to go to bed, so I better work out. So I did a kettlebell workout.
You sound like Chamath.
What did you say?
I have 8 kettlebells right here, right next to my standing desk.
Yeah.
Freebird, this is called working out, Freebird,
Right.
what you're sitting here.
And then while I'm doing my kettlebell suitcase carry, I was texting with an entrepreneur friend. So you can tell how intense my workout was. And he's in Singapore, so it was in the middle of the night for me and early for him.
Oh, I
And
know
then when it
who
was time
was.
to go to bed, I was like, okay, now I got to get to bed. How do I get to bed? My body's all amped up. I've got food in my stomach. Just some
cream,
My brain is all amped up. And All In podcast is tomorrow. And what time is it? It's 1:30 in the morning. I better get to bed. So I put on like a little one of those spiritual videos to calm me down. and then I got in bed and I was like, there's no way I'm falling asleep. And I started meditating. And 5 minutes later, I was asleep.
You know, actually, the Dalai Lama has these great, on his YouTube channel, he's got these great like 2-hour discussions. You get about 20, 30 minutes into that, you will fall asleep.
Well, yeah,
No
but my learning is...
Yeah, watch any Dharma lecture from the SSN Center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my learning is that the mind will do anything to avoid meditation. Yeah, Twitter, Uber, Notion, bunch of others, Postmates, Udemy, a lot of unicorns, bunch upcoming. I don't know, it's actually a lot of deals at this point. But honestly, I'm not necessarily proud of being an investor. Investor to me is a side job. It's a hobby. So I do startups.
How do you define yourself?
I don't. I mean, I guess these days I would say more like building things. You know, every so-called career is an evolution, right?
Yeah.
And all of you guys are independent and you kind of do what you're most interested in, right? That's the point of making money. So you can just do what you want. So these days I'm really into building and crafting products. So I built one recently called AirChat. It kind of didn't work. I'm still proud of what I built and got to work with an incredible team. And now I'm building a new product. And this time I'm going into hardware.
Oh.
And I'm just building something that I really want. I'm not
And
ready
you
to talk
funded all
about it
yourself,
yet.
Naval?
Partially, I bring investors along. Last time they got their money back. Previous times they've made money. Next time, hopefully they'll make a lot of money. It's good to bring your friends along.
I'll be honest. I love that you said, I love the product, but it didn't work. Not enough people say that.
Yeah, no, I built a product that I loved, that I was proud of, but it didn't catch fire. And it was a social product, so it had to catch fire for it to work. So I found the team great homes. They all got paid. The investors that I brought in got their money back. And I learned a ton, which I'm leveraging into the new thing. But the new thing is much harder. The new thing is hardware and software and
But
networking.
what did you learn building in 2024 and 2025 that you didn't know maybe before then?
The main thing was actually just the craft of pixel by pixel designing a software product and launching it. I guess the main thing I took away that was a learning was that I really enjoyed building products and that I wanted to build something even harder and something even more real. And I think like a lot of us, I'm inspired by Elon and all the incredible work he's done. So I don't want to build things that are easy. I want to build things that are hard and interesting. And I want to take on more technical risk and less market risk. This is the classic VC learning, right? Which is you want to build something that if people get it, if you can deliver it, people will want it. And it's just hard to build, as opposed to you build it and you don't know if they want it. So that's a learning.
AirChat was a lot of fun. For those of you who don't know, it was kind of like a social media network where you could ask a question and then people could respond. And it was like an audio-based Twitter. Would you say that was the best way to describe it?
Audio Twitter, asynchronous, AI transcripts and all kinds of AI to make it easier for you, translation. Really good way for kind of trying to make podcasting type conversations more accessible to everybody. Because honestly, one of the reasons I don't go on podcasts, I don't like being intermediated, so to speak, right? Where you sit there and someone interviews you and then you go back and forth and you go through the same old things. I just want to talk to people. I want peer relationships, kind of like you guys have running here.
Naval, what happened when you went through that phase? There was a period where it just seemed like something had gone on in your life and you just knew the answers. You were just so grounded. It's not to say that you're not grounded now, but you're less active, posting and writing. But there was this period where I think all of us were like, all right, what does Naval think?
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's news to me.
I would say it would be like the late teens, the early 20s. Jason, you can correct me if I'm getting the dates wrong, but it's in that moment where like these Naval-isms and this sort of philosophy really started to, I think people had a tremendous respect for how you were thinking about things. I'm just curious, like what, were you going through something in that moment or like?
Oh, yeah. That's
okay.
Right. No, very insightful. Yeah. So I've been on Twitter since 2007 because I was an early investor, but I never really tweeted. I didn't get featured. I had no audience. I was just doing the usual techie guy thing, talking to each other. And then I started AngelList in 2010. The original thing about matching investors to startups didn't scale. It was just an email list that exploded at early on, but then just didn't scale. So we didn't have a business. And I was trying to figure out the business. And at the same time, I got a letter from the Securities and Exchange Commission saying, oh, you're acting as an unlicensed broker dealer. And I'm like, what? I'm not making any money. I'm just making intros. I'm not taking anything. It's just a public service. But even then, they were coming after me. So I was and I'd raised a bunch of money from investors. So I was in a very high stress period of my life. Now, looking back, it's almost comical that I was stressed over it. But at the time, it all felt very real. The weight of everything was on my shoulders, expectations, people, money, regulators. And I eventually went to DC and got the law changed to legalize what we do, which ironically enabled a whole bunch of other things like ICOs and incubator days and so on, demo days. But in that process, I was in a very high stress period of my life. And I just started tweeting whatever I was going through, whatever realizations I was happening. It's only in stress that you sort of are forced to grow. And so whatever internal growth I was going through, I just started tweeting it, not thinking much of it. And it was a mix of, there are three things that I kind of always kind of are running through. One is I love science. You know, I'm an amateur, love physics. Let's just leave it at that. I love reading a lot of philosophy and thinking deeply about it. And I like making money, right? Truth, love, and money. That's my joke on my Twitter bio. Those are the three things that I keep coming back to. And so I just started tweeting about all of them. And I think before that, the expectation was that someone like me should just be talking about money, stay in your lane. And people had been playing it very safe. And so I think the combination of the three sort of caught people's attentions because every person thinks about everything. We don't just stay in our lane in real life. We're dealing with our relationships. We're dealing with our relationship with the universe. We're dealing with what we know to be true and, you know, with science and how we make decisions and how we figure things out. And we're also dealing with the practical, everyday material things of how to deal with our spouses or girlfriends or wives or husbands and how to make money and how to deal with our children. So I'm just tweeting about everything. I just got interested in everything. I'm tweeting about it. And a lot of it, my best stuff was just notes to self. It's like, hey, don't forget this.
How to get rich. Remember that one? How to get rich.
That was just like one of the first threads. And that was went super viral. Yeah, that was a banger.
Yeah, I think that is still the most viral thread ever on Twitter. I like timeless things. I like philosophy. I like things that are still apply in the future. I like compound interest, if you will, in ideas. Obviously, recently, X has become so addictive that we're all checking it every day. And Elon's built the perfect for you. He's built TikTok for nerds, and we're all on it. But normally, I try to ignore the news. Obviously, last year, things got real. We all had to pay a lot of attention to the news. But I just like to tweet timeless things. I don't know. I mean, people pay attention. Sometimes they like what I write. Sometimes they go nonlinear on me. But yeah, the how to get rich tweet storm was a big one.
Is it problematic when people now meet you because the hype versus the reality, there's like, it's discordant now because people, if they absorb this content, they expect to see some quasi-deity, floating in the air. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, like many of you, I've stopped drinking, but I used to like have the occasional glass of wine. And there was a moment there where I went and met with an information reporter back when I used to meet with reporters. And she said, where are we going to meet? So I said, oh, let's meet at the wine merchant and we'll get a glass of wine. She's like, what, you drink? Like it was like a big deal for her.
God, oh no, I'm so disappointed.
I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. Most of them are alcoholics or in psychedelics or
for sure.
doing whatever it takes to manage.
Ketamine in a hot tub. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When they say I'm on therapy, you know what that's code for. So yes, it is highly discordant.
Plant medicine.
Yeah, I'm almost reminded of that line in The Matrix where that agent is about to like shoot one of the Matrix characters and says, only human, right? So that's kind of what I want to say to everybody, like, only human.
Yeah.
You did recently a podcast with Tim Ferriss on parenting. This was out there. I love this. And I bought the book from this guy.
Yeah.
Just give a brief overview of this philosophy of parenting.
Oh, I didn't listen to this. I have to write this down. Tell us,
you're going to love this. This spoke to me, but it was a little crazy.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of David Deutsch. David Deutsch, I think, is basically the smartest living human. He's a scientist who pioneered quantum computation. And he's written a couple of great books, but it's about the intersection of the greatest theories that we have today, the theories with the most reach. And those are epistemology, the theory of knowledge, evolution, quantum physics, and computation.
This is the beginning of Infinity, guy. That's the book
Infinity is
that you always reference. Yeah,
correct. Yes, The Fabric of Reality is another book. I've spent a fair bit of time with him, done some podcasts with him, hired and worked with people around him. And I'm just really impressed because it's like the framework that's made me smarter, I feel like. Because we're all fighting aging. Our brains are getting slower, and we're always trying to have better ideas. So as you age, you should have wisdom. That's your substitute for the raw horsepower of intelligence going down. And so scientific wisdom I take from David. Not take, but I learned from David. And one of the things that he pioneered is called taking children seriously. And it's this idea that you should take your children seriously like adults. You should always give them the same freedom that you would give an adult. If you wouldn't speak that way with your spouse, if you wouldn't force your spouse to do something, don't force a child to do something. And it's only through the latent threat of physical violence, hey, I can control you, I can make you go to your room, I can take your dinner away or whatever, that you intimidate children. And it resonated with me because I grew up very, very free. My father wasn't around when I was young. My mother didn't have the bandwidth to watch us all the time. She had other things to do. And so I kind of was making my own decisions from an extremely young age. From the age of 5, nobody was telling me what to do. And from the age of 9, I was telling everybody what to do. So I'm used to that. And I've been homeschooling my own kids. So the philosophy resonated. And I found this guy, Aaron Stupel, on AirChat. And he was an incredible expositor of the philosophy. He lives his life with it 99% as extreme as one can go. So his kids can eat all the ice cream they want and all the Snickers bars they want. They can play on the iPad all they want. They don't have to go to school if they don't feel like it. They dress how they want. They don't have to do anything they don't want to do. Everything is a discussion, negotiation, explanation, just like you would with a roommate or an adult living in your house. And it's kind of insane and extreme. But I live my own home life in that arc, in that direction. And I'm a very free person. I don't have an office to go to. I try really not to maintain a calendar. If I can't remember it, I don't want to do it. I don't send my kids to school. I really try not to coerce them. And so obviously that's an extreme model, but I was
sorry. Hold on a second. So your kids, if they were like, I want Haagen-Dazs and it's 9 p.m., you're like, okay.
2 nights ago I did this. I ordered the Haagen-Dazs. It wasn't Haagen-Dazs. It was a different brand, but I ordered it. Yeah.
I'm just going to go through a couple of examples.
We DoorDash ice cream at 9 p.m. and we all ate ice cream.
Yeah, so they're like, Dad, I want...
And they're happy. They're happy kids.
Right, I want to be on my iPad. I'm playing Fortnite. Leave me alone. I'll go to sleep when I want. You're like, okay.
My oldest probably plays iPad 9 hours a day.
Okay, so then your other kid pees in their pants because they're too lazy to walk to the bathroom.
They don't do that because they don't like peeing their pants.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying, like, there's a spectrum of all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And your point of view is 100% of it is allowed, and you have no judgments.
No, that's not where I am.
Okay.
That's where Aaron is. My rules are a little different. My rules are they got to do 1 hour of math or programming plus 2 hours of reading every single day. And the moment they've done that, they're free creatures. And everything else is a negotiation where I have to persuade them. It's a persuasion, I should say, not even a negotiation. And even the hour of math and 2 hours of reading, really, you get 15 to 30 minutes of math, maybe an hour if you're lucky. And you get half an hour to 2 hours of reading if you're lucky.
And what do you think the long-term consequences of that are? And then also, what is the long-term consequences, let's say, on health if they're making decisions you know are just not good, like the ice cream thing at 9 p.m.? Yeah. How do you manage that in your mind?
I think whatever age you're at, whatever part you're at in life, you're still always struggling with your own habits. I think all of us, for example, still eat food and feel guilty or want to eat something that we shouldn't be eating. And we're still always evolving our diets. And kids are the same. So my oldest he passed on the ice cream last time. And he said, I want to eat healthier because finally I managed to get through to him and persuade him that he should be healthier. My younger kids will eat it, but they'll eat a limited amount. My middle kid will sometimes eat some and
so
not
you're not,
others.
So if they say something, you'll enable it, but then you'll be like, hey, listen, like, this is not the choice I would make. I don't think, but if you want it, I do it.
Yeah. I'll try it, but you also have to be careful where you don't want to intimidate them and you don't want to be so overbearing that then they just view dad as like controlling.
I find this so fascinating. And so what do you think happens to these kids? I'm sure you have a vision of what they'll be like when they're fully formed adults. Like, what is that vision?
I try not to. They're going to be who they're going to be. This is kind of how I grew up. I kind of did what I wanted. I would rather they have agency than turn out exactly the way I want. Because agency is the hardest thing, right? Having control over your own life, making your own decisions. And I want them to be happy. I have a very happy household.
What is what's Plato's goal? Eudaimonia, right? Like
eudaimonia? The happy life, Aristotle.
Or like the fulfillment, this concept. Is that what you want for them?
I don't really want anything for them. I just want them to be free and their best selves. I would say overall, my kids are very happy. The household is very happy. Everybody gets along. Everybody loves each other.
Yeah.
Some of them are way ahead of their peers. Nobody's behind in anything that matters. Nobody seems unhealthy in any obvious way. No one has aberrant eating habits. I haven't even found an aberrant behavior that's out of line. So it's all good.
Self-correcting. It's like
I worry a lot about this like iPad situation. I see my kids on an iPad and it's almost like, unless they're doing an interactive project, if they end up watching...
Says the guy who has a video game theme in the background.
Well, that was interactive,
and
right?
Who probably grew up playing video games nonstop and probably spends 9 hours a day on his screen, just called a phone. So... Yeah, it's the same thing, man.
Well, I mean, I feel like but do they watch shows, Naval?
No, there's a hypocrisy to picking up your phone and then saying to your kid, no, you can't use your iPad. I grew up playing video games nonstop and video games when I was older, and I was an avid gamer until just a few years ago.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not criticizing the iPad. I was obviously on a computer since I was 4 years old, so I totally get it. And I think the question for me is like, but I didn't have the ability to play a 30-minute show and then play the next 30-minute show and the next 30-minute show and then sit there for 2 hours and just have a show playing the whole time. I was, interacting on the computer and doing stuff and building stuff, which was a little different for me from a use case perspective.
Yeah, we did used to control their YouTube access, although now we don't do that. The only thing I ask them is that they put on captions when they're watching YouTube, so it helps their reading. They learn to read faster.
That's a good tip. Yeah, I like that one.
I will say that one of my kids is really into YouTube. The other two are not. Like, they just got over it. And to the extent that they use YouTube, it's mostly because they're looking up videos on their favorite games. They want to know how to be better at a game. I think the idea that America should win, great. I think that we should not regulate. I also agree with. I'm not an AI doomer. I don't think AI is going to end the world. That's a separate conversation. But there's just a religion that comes along in many faces, which is that, climate change is going to end the world. AI is going to end the world. Asteroids going to end the world. COVID-19 is going to end the world. And it just has a way of fixating your attention, right? It captures everybody's attention at once. So it's a very seductive thing. And I think in the case of AI, it's really been overplayed by incentive bias, motivated reasoning by the companies who are ahead and they want to pull up the ladder behind them. I think they genuinely believe it. I think they genuinely believe that there's safety risks, but I think they're motivated to believe in those safety risks, and then they pass that along. But it's kind of a weird position because they have to say, it's so dangerous that you shouldn't just let open source go at it, and you should let just a few of us work with you on it. But it's not so dangerous that a private company can't own the whole thing. Right? Because if it was truly the Manhattan Project, if they were building nuclear weapons, you wouldn't want one company to own that. No. Sam Altman's famously said that AI will capture the light cone of all future value. In other words, like all value ever created at the speed of light from here will be captured by AI. So if that's true, then I think open source AI really matters, and little tech AI really matters. The problem is that the nature of training these models is highly centralized. They benefit from supercomputer clustered compute. So it's not clear how any decentralized model can compete. So to me, the real issue boils down to is how do you push AI forward while not having just a very small number of players control the entire thing? And we thought we had that solution with the original OpenAI, which was a nonprofit and was supposed to do it for humanity. But now, because of they want to incentivize the team and they want to raise money, they have to privatize at least a part of it. Although it's not clear to me why they need to privatize the whole thing. Like, why do you need to buy out the nonprofit portion? You could leave a nonprofit portion and you could have the private portion for the incentives. But I think that the real challenge is how do you keep AI from naturally centralizing? Because all the economics and the technology underneath are centralizing in nature. If you really think you're going to create God, do you want to put God on a leash with one entity controlling God? That to me is the real fear. I'm not scared of AI. I'm scared of what a very small number of people who control AI do to the rest of us for our own good, because that's how it always works.
Should we shut the border and not let the next Naval, Chamath, Sachs, and Friedberg into the country?
Well, let me declare my biases up front. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I moved here when I was 9 years old. Or rather, my parents did, and then I naturalized citizen. So obviously, I'm in favor of some level of immigration. That said, I'm assimilated. I consider myself an American first and foremost. I bleed red, white, and blue. I believe in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, first and second and fourth and all the proper amendments. I get up there every July 4th and I deliberately defend the Second Amendment on Twitter, at which point half my followers go bananas. Because I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to be a good immigrant, right? And carry the usual set of coherent leftist policies, globalist policies. So I think that legal high-skill immigration with room and time for assimilation makes sense. You want to have a brain drain on the best and brightest coming to the freest country in the world to build technology and to help civilization move forward. And as Chamath was saying, economic power and military power is downstream of technology. In fact, even culture is downstream of technology. Look at what the birth control pill did, for example, to culture, or what the automobile did to culture, or what radio and television did to culture, and then the internet. So technology drives everything. And if you look at wealth, wealth is a set of physical transformations that you can affect. And that's a combination of capital and knowledge. And the bigger input to that is knowledge. And so the US has become the home of knowledge creation thanks to bringing in the best and brightest. You could even argue DeepSeek, part of the reason why we lost that is because a bunch of those kids, they studied in the US, but then we sent them back home.
Right.
So I think you absolutely
Is that actually accurate? That they were...
Yeah.
A few of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's like Exhibit A. Wow, I didn't know that.
So I think you absolutely have to split skilled, assimilated immigration, which is a small set, and it has to be both. They have to both be skilled and they have to become Americans. That oath is not meaningless, right? It has to mean something. So skilled, assimilated immigration, you have to separate that from just open borders, whoever can wander in, just come on in. That latter part makes no sense.
Sachs, you don't believe that millions...
But hold on, those driver jobs weren't even there 10 years ago. Uber came along and created all these driver jobs.
Enough.
DoorDash created all these driver jobs. So what technology does, yes, technology destroys jobs, but it replaces them with opportunities that are even better. And then either you can go capture that opportunity yourself, or an entrepreneur will come along and create something that allows you to capture those opportunities. AI is a productivity tool. It increases the productivity of a worker. It allows them to do more creative work and less repetitive work. As such, it makes them more valuable. Yes, there is some retraining involved, but not a lot. These are natural language computers. You can talk to them in plain English, and they talk back to you in plain English. But I think David is absolutely right. I think we will see job creation by AI that will be as fast or faster than job destruction. You saw this even with the internet. Like YouTube came along. Look at all these YouTube streamers and influencers. That didn't used to be a job. New jobs, really opportunities, because job is a wrong word. Job implies someone else has to give it to me, and it's sort of like they're handed out. It's a zero-sum game. Forget all that. It's opportunities. After COVID, look at how many people are making money by working from home in mysterious little ways on the internet that you can't even quite grasp. The fastest way to help somebody get a job right now, if you know somebody in the market who's looking for a job, the best thing you can do is say, hey, go download the AI tools and just start talking to them. Just start using them in any way. And then you can walk into any employer in almost any field and say, hey, I understand AI, and they'll hire you on the spot. Definitely what you're saying in that there's leverage. But at the same time, I think the more interesting part is that new startups are enabled that could not exist otherwise. My last startup, AirChat, could not have existed without AI because we needed the transcription and translation. Even the current thing I'm working on, it's not an AI company, but it cannot exist without AI. It is relying on AI. Even at AngelList, we're significantly adopting AI. Like everywhere you turn, it's more opportunity, more opportunity, more opportunity. And people like to go on Twitter, or the artist formerly known as Twitter, and basically they like to exaggerate, like, oh my God, we've hit AGI. Oh my God, I just replaced all my mid-level engineers. Oh my God, I've stopped hiring. To me, that's like moronic. The two valid ones are the one-man entrepreneur shows where there's like one guy or one gal and they're like scaling up like crazy thanks to
Phil
AI.
Kaplan, shout out.
Or there are people who are embracing AI and being like, I need to hire. And I need to hire anyone who can even spell AI. Like anyone who's even used AI. Just come on in, come on in. Again, I would say the easiest way to see that AI is not taking jobs but creating opportunities is go brush up on your AI, learn a little bit, watch a few videos, use the AI, tinker with it, and then go reapply for that job that rejected you and watch how they pull you in. Another way to think about it is these are natural language computers. So everyone who was intimidated by computers before should no longer be intimidated. You don't need to program anymore in some esoteric language or learn some obscure mathematics to be able to use these. You can just talk to them and they talk back to you. That's magic. I would agree heavily with one point, and I would just tweak another. The point I would agree with is that it's going to happen anyway, and that's what DeepSeek proved. You can turn off the flow of chips to them, and you can turn off the flow of talent. What do? They just get more efficient, and they exported it back to us. They sent us back the best open source model when our guys were staying closed source for safety reasons. The part where I try to tweak a little bit is the idea that we are going to win. And by we, when you say America, the problem is that the best way to win is to be as open, as distributed, as innovative as possible. If this all ends up in the control of one company, they're actually going to be slower to innovate than if there's a dynamic system. And that dynamic system, by its nature, will be open. It will leak to China. It will leak to India. But these things have powerful network effects. We know this about technology. Almost all technology has network effects underneath. And so even if you are open, you're still going to win. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this, but I don't think we know how to build AGI. But that's a much longer discussion.
Okay, put AGI aside. Yeah. Who's going to have the best model 5 years from now?
Hold on, I 100% agree with you.
I just think it's a different thing. But what we're building are these incredible natural language computers. And actually, David, in a very pithy way, summarized the two big use cases. It's search and it's homeworks. It's paperwork. It's really paperwork. And a lot of these jobs that we're talking about disappearing are actually paperwork jobs. They're paperwork shuffling. These are made up jobs. Like the federal government, as we're finding out through Doge, a third of it is like people digging holes with spoons and another third are filling them back up. What we found out is the DMV has been running the government for the last 70 years. It's been a compounding on itself. And that's really what's going on. It's the DMV's in charge. Yeah. To keep the conversation moving, let me segue a point that came up that was really important into tariffs. And the point is, even though the internet was open, the US won a lot of the internet. A lot of US companies won the internet. Yep. And they won that because we got there the firstest with the mostest, as they say in the military. And that matters because a lot of technology businesses have scale economies and network effects underneath. Even basic brand-based network effects. If you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, very few people would have predicted that we would have ended up with Amazon basically owning all of e-commerce. You would have thought it would have been a perfect competition and very spread out. And that applies to how we ended with Uber as basically one taxi service, or we end up with
Airbnb.
Meta, Airbnb. It's just network effects rule the world around me. But when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade, we act like network effects don't exist. The classic Ricardian comparative advantage dogma says that you should produce what you're best at, I produce what I'm best at, and we trade. And then even if you want to charge me more for it, if you want to impose tariffs for me to ship to you, I should still keep tariffs down because I'm better off. You're just selling me stuff cheaply, great. Or if you want to subsidize your guys, great, you're selling me stuff cheaply. The problem is that is not how most modern businesses work. Most modern businesses have network effects. As a simple thought experiment, suppose that we have two countries, right? I'm China, you're the US. I start out by subsidizing all of my companies and industries that have network effects. So I'll subsidize TikTok, I'll ban your social media, but I'll push mine. I will subsidize my semiconductors, which tend to have winner take all in certain categories, or I'll subsidize my drones, and then
BYD.
BYD, self-driving, whatever. And then when I win, I own the whole market and I can raise prices. And if you try to start up a competitor, then it's too late. I've got network effects. Or if I've got scale economies, I can lower my price to zero, crash you out of business. No one in their right mind will invest and I'll raise prices right back up. So you have to understand that certain industries have hysteresis, or they have network effects, or they have economies of scale. And these are all the interesting ones. These are all the high margin businesses. So in those, if somebody is subsidizing or they're raising tariffs against you to protect your industries and let them develop, you do have to do something. You can't just completely back down. Right?
Economy feels like it's in a very precarious place.
It does to asset holders.
Yeah, to asset holders.
And obviously they've left it in a bad place in the last administration, and we shut down the entire country for a year over COVID, and the bill for that has come due, and that's reflected in inflation. I think there are a couple other points in tariffs. First is, it's not just about money. It's also about making sure we have a functional middle class with good jobs. Because if you have a non-tariff world, maybe all the gains go to the upper class and an underclass. And then you can't have a functioning democracy when the average person is on one of those two extremes. So I think that's one issue. Another is strategic industries. If you look at it today, probably the largest defense contractor in the world is DJI. They got all the drones. Even in Ukraine, both sides are getting all their drone parts from DJI. Now, they're getting it through different supply chains and so on, but Ukrainian drones and Russian drones, the vast majority of them are coming through China, through DJI. And we don't have that industry. If we have a kinetic conflict right now and we don't have good drone supply chain internally in the US, we're probably going to lose because those things are autonomous bullets. That's the future of all warfare. We're buying F-35s and the Chinese are building swarms of nanodrones. At scale. So we do have to re-onshore those critical supply chains. And what is a drone supply chain? It's not just, there's not a thing called drone. It's like motors and semiconductors and,
it's a lot of pieces.
And optics and lasers and just everything across the board. So I think there are other good arguments for at least reshoring some of these industries. We need them. And the United States is very lucky in that it's very autarkic. We have all the resources, we have all the supplies. We can be upstream of everybody with all the energy. To the extent we're importing any energy, that is a choice we made. That is not because fundamentally we lack the energy.
Right.
Yeah, that's because of between all the oil resources and the natural gas and fracking, combined with all the work we've done in nuclear fission and small reactors, we should absolutely be energy independent.
We should be running the table on it. We should
absolutely. And there is a difference between different kinds of jobs. Those kinds of jobs are better jobs. Building difficult things at scale physically that we need for both national security and for innovation. Those are better jobs than, paperwork, writing essays for other people to read.
Yeah.
Or even driving cars. There's also a good old video by Ilya Sutskever where he was I believe the founding chief scientist or CTO of OpenAI. And he talks about how these large language models are basically extreme compressors. And he models them entirely as their ability to compress. And they're lossy
compression. Exactly.
Lossy extreme compression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and Google got sued for fair use back in the day. But the way they managed to get past the argument was they were always linking back to you. They showed you a tiny bit and they sent you the traffic. They sent you the traffic. I think the New York Times content is worthless to an LLM, but that's a different story. I think the actual valuable content is different.
Political reason, whatever. But
wait, David. In that case, can a Google crawler just crawl an entire site and serve it on Google? Why can't they do that?
So here's the fair use. The fair use is you cannot repeat the content. You cannot take the content and repeat it.
That is how the law is currently written. But now what I have is I have a tool that can remix it with 50 other pieces of similar content, and I can change the words slightly and maybe even translate into different language. So where does it stop? Yeah, but there are entire sites like Stack Overflow and WikiHow that are basically disappeared now because you can just swallow them all up and you can just spit it all back out in ChatGPT with slight changes. So I think that the
but
first
I think the
and
fair
fourth
use
test,
is how much of a slight change is exactly the right question.
Yeah,
which is how much are you
question.
changing?
Yeah, so that's the question. And it actually boils down to the AGI question. Are these things actually intelligent and are they learning or are they compressing and regurgitating? That's the question.
Right, that's
it's
the hard
very
part.
hard to figure that out, which is why I come back to there's only one of two stable solutions to this. And it's going to happen anyway. If we don't crawl it, the Chinese will crawl it, right? DeepSeek proved that. So there's only one of two stable solutions. Either you pay the copyright holders, which I actually think doesn't work. And the reason is because someone in China will crawl it and they just dump the weights, right? So they can just crawl and compress and dump the compressed weights. Or if you crawl, make it open. At least contribute something back to open source, right? You crawled open data, contributed back to open source. And the people who don't want to be crawled, they're going to have to go to huge lengths to protect their data. Now everybody knows to protect the data. I think in OpenAI's defense, they do need to raise a lot of money and they got to incent their employees. But that doesn't mean they need to take over the whole thing. That the nonprofit portion can still stay the nonprofit portion and get the lion's share of the benefits and be the board. And then he can have an incentive package and employees can have an incentive package.
Yeah, why don't they get a percentage of the revenue? Just give them like 10%
I don't understand
of
why
the revenue
it has
goes
to
to
be
the team.
bought out right now for $40 billion and then the whole thing disappears into a closed system. That part makes no sense to me.
That's called a shell game and a scam.
Yeah, I think Sam and his team would do better to leave the nonprofit part alone, leave an actual independent nonprofit board in charge, and then have a strong incentive plan and a strong fundraising plan for the investors and the employees. So I think this is workable. It's just trying to grab it all. It just seems way off, especially when it was built on open algorithms from Google, open data from the web, and on a nonprofit funding from Elon and others. But even equity, they could give equity to the people building it, but they could still leave it in the control of the nonprofit. I just don't understand this conversion. I mean, there was a board coup, right? The board tried to fire Sam, and Sam took over the board. Now it's his handpicked board, so it also looks like self-dealing, right? And yeah, they'll get an independent valuation, but we all know that game. You hire a valuation expert who's going to say what you're going to say, and they'll check the box. But if you're going to capture the light cone of all future value or build super intelligence, we know that's worth a lot more. That's why Elon just bid $100 billion. Well, I saw a very insightful tweet, and I forget who wrote it, so I'm sorry I can't give credit. But the guy basically said, look, Trump has a narrow majority in the House and the Senate. Yeah. And he can get everything he wants as long as the Republicans stay in line. Right. So all the pressure and all the anger that all the MAGA movement is doing against the left is pointless. It's all about keeping the right wing in line.
Yeah. Great job, Naval. You rocked it.
Maybe I should have said this on air, but that was literally the most fun podcast I've ever recorded.
Okay. Oh, that's on air. Cut that in.
Yeah, put it in the show. Put it in the show.
I had my theory on why you were number one, but now I have the realization.
What's the actual reason? You know us for a long time.
Yeah, what was your theory? What's the reality?
My theory was that my problem with going on podcasts is usually the person I'm talking to is not that interesting. They're just asking the same questions and they're dialing it in and they're not that interested. It's not like we're having a peer level actual conversations. That's why I wanted to do air chat and Clubhouse and things like that, because you can actually have a conversation.
Oh, I see.
Right? And what you guys have very uniquely is 4 people, you know, of whom at least 3 are intelligent. No, I'm kidding.
How could you say that? Sachs isn't here. How did you? Yeah. What? Wait, Sachs isn't even here. You say that, Naval? That is so cold.
Right, of whom at least 3 are intelligent, and all of you get along, and you can have an ongoing conversation. That's a very high hit rate. Normally in a podcast, you only get 1 interesting person, and now you've got 3, maybe 4, right? Okay, so that to me was why
Who
all
invited
is
this
successful.
guy? Who are you talking to? Is number?
We don't know. It shall remain mysterious forever. Of the 4, right? The problem is like if you get people together to talk, 2 is a good conversation. 3 possibly, 4 is the max. That's why at a dinner table at a restaurant, 4 top, right? You don't do 5 or 6 because then it splits into multiple conversations. So you had 4 people who were capable of talking, right? That I thought was a secret, but there's another secret. The other secret is you guys are having fun. You're talking over each other. You're making fun of each other. You're actually having fun. So that's why I'm saying this is the most fun podcast I've ever been on. And that's awesome. That's why you'll be successful.
Welcome back anytime, Naval.
Thanks,
bro. Thank you.
Welcome
Keep
back.
It fun.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep it fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
and 3 smart guys. Can't believe it. I can't even believe you'd say that about Sachs. He's not even here to defend himself.
Sorry, David.